All right, so welcome this afternoon. We're going to continue our discussion about things to do in the breeding bench in order to keep it productive and maintain its health. Last time we talked about pruning, and we talked a little bit about how to make sure that there's an open an area for the air to flow through the plants. And also we talked a little bit about being careful about not spreading diseases and stuff. So this presentation this time, we are going to talk a little bit about the different diseases that you might encounter in the greenhouse. We're going to see some symptoms of different diseases, and we're going to learn the different methods that diseases can be transferred within the greenhouse. So we're going to start now. I want to thank Dr. Gary Vallon, who had created this for a presentation at one of his conferences, and he has allowed me to modify it for our purposes. So this is strictly for the greenhouse and really not comprehensive at all. It's just to give you an idea of what kind of things you might encounter. So has anybody done any scouting on their own? Have they gone out to our fields or gone scouted in your own gardens? Have you spotted any of these kinds of diseases?
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody familiar with the term scouting? Can anybody identify? Give me the meaning of scouting. If I say scouting.
You go looking.
Right, intentionally seeking.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going with the idea that you're looking to see if there's any diseases or anything that could cause diseases while you're out there. So there's a wide array of different things that you might encounter in the field. We won't necessarily have those same kinds of problems in the greenhouse for various reasons. But does anybody know the ways that diseases can spread, either in the greenhouse or in the field?
Physical,
with contact.
manual. Yeah, physical is
Right.
manual. By insects.
Insects.
Mm-hmm.
When it's transmitted by an insect, you know what that's called?
Vector.
Vector. Very good. And there's a third way that the third way that it can go other than just contact. If you doesn't come to mind. Seeds, or if we're talking fungus.
Water.
And what does a fungus create? Spores. We'll talk about that.
What is that?
That is
That picture.
well, let's see our presentation and find out.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the diseases and disorders that you might encounter in the greenhouse. There's a difference between disease and disorder, and it's highlighted here. Disorders aren't necessarily a pathogen, and not necessarily a disease that has gotten into them. It could be from it needs too much magnesium, or it's not enough water, or something like that. It's something that can be either adjusted in order to fix the problem, or it could be something that you really have no control over, like genetics. But we're going to concentrate on diseases in this presentation. So here are some of the common diseases in the greenhouse that you might find here. Again, this list is not exhaustive, but this is just the ones that we're going to kind of showcase within this presentation. So bacterial is spread by foliage contact. So one of the things, when we talked about last time, while we were pruning, we were saying we can should alcohol our hands. One of the reasons is so that if we do have anything, any kind of diseases on our hand, we don't spread it from plant to plant, or spread it into the greenhouse as we go in there. These are some of the ways that you can tell that you've got a bacterial spot condition, and I'm less concerned that you know exactly what it's called as I am as being able to identify some of the symptoms of it. Because once we identify that there's a problem, then we could do something about it. We just need to alert somebody to spray correctly or fix the problem that is causing it. So these are bacterial diseases are really, there's so many different bacterial diseases out there. And these are some of the ways that it gets spread. High humidity, which you always have in the greenhouse. When you're handling a lot of wet foliage, in the morning especially, because there's all the condensation on the leaves, there's a really higher tendency to spread things at that time. And different bacterial species have different optimal temperature ranges. So just because you have a high temperature, you can say, oh, it's too hot for the bacteria. Well, there's bacteria, I'm sure, out there that will survive in that temperature. So you can't even go by what the temperature in your particular greenhouse is. But that is a way that you can kind of figure out which kind of bacteria you've got based on the temperature that you've got. The next mode of transportation is fungal through spores. So you can see some of the fungal symptoms here, little white spots. In the breeding bench, we often get this fuzzy stuff on the leaf, and it usually occurs when the greenhouse has been very wet in general. If there's a lot of dead tissue in there, which happens if you haven't been pruning, and there's lots of dead leaves that are where the fungus can grow on. These are things that we need to be aware of, and if we can maintain that pruning, we can make sure that we don't. We can be more sure that we don't get these kinds of issues. Here are some of our vectored viruses. TYLCV is transmitted through whitefly, and even though the greenhouse is kind of contained, we often get whitefly in there. Either they come in from the greenhouse beside us, or maybe they were in the original greenhouse where we moved the transplants as eggs, and they got in there that way. So we always have to be on the lookout. They have a very distinct, crinkly, not looking good kind of leaf structure. So we always want to keep our eye out for that. These are viruses that are carried by thrips. We sometimes, again, get these from the neighboring greenhouse, or sometimes the weeds are growing outside the greenhouse and thrips are out there and they find their way in through breaks in the sides. So a variety of diseases can be spread with thrips as well. Before we get into questions, the other kind of virus that I had wanted to mention at the beginning and I forgot was tomato mosaic virus. Now that is a virus that is not carried by insects, it is spread by contact. And we've had a terrible time with that here in the greenhouse in the past. It spreads by contact, so it's really easy to go from plant to plant. One of the ways that it got in there that we found was somebody was smoking cigarettes. It carries in tobacco that is in the cigarettes. It's on your hand, and you carry it, and they carry it into the greenhouse. And they wasn't even necessarily one of our workers. There were workers that were working on the fans or something in there, and they just happened to be in there and caused a problem. And it was a tremendous amount of work to get rid of it. We had to bleach the whole place. We put milk, because milk it has some kind of enzyme in it that neutralizes the virus. Lots of stuff we had to do in order to get out of there. So we want to really make sure that we don't carry any of these diseases in there with us. Mm-hmm. Is there any questions?
What are some of the ways we can prevent bringing diseases in? Besides washing our hands,
Mm-hmm.
what else should we do or not do?
Very good. Why don't you tell me, what can you think of that might be a way that diseases could come into the greenhouse?
If I was handling it beforehand? Like if I was in the field or something?
Very good. So if you're in the field, one of the things is you don't go into the greenhouse after the field, because you could be carrying something with you on your clothes or in your hands or somewhere. Anything else? If you've been in our greenhouse, and I know most of you have, there is something right there at the front door.
A foot bath.
A foot bath. So we have a bleach bath right in the front. When you get in, you put your feet in, you make sure that your shoes are nice and clean, and then you can walk in. And then you.
So we can carry disease by our shoes?
You absolutely can, yes. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to have that kind of a problem. The other thing, if we're pruning and we find things like fungus, we want to make sure that we take that debris out of there. Anybody know why? We would want to take that debris out and not leave it there.
So it doesn't continue to grow?
Spore doesn't spread.
So it doesn't spread, yeah, and the spores will come and it can go to other places other than just right next to them. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think you covered all of my questions. Oh, and you already answered where the vector was, so that's very cool. What we're going to do now, if you have no other questions, and I do want to say, if you do have any questions about diseases, please see Dr. Gary Vlad. He is a wealth of information, and he can provide any answers that you might need. But we're going to take a little break from the PowerPoint, and we're going to do a little activity. So I'm going to put out some plant samples, and you have to you kind of share among yourselves. Okay, one more. You have to look at these and tell me if you can figure out which ones have diseases. Are there any that don't have diseases? And if you can identify them, we can bring them out.
Yeah, these are not. That's definitely not. Okay.
Can anybody find what looks like a bacterial disease? All right, and how did you decide that?
There's a spot.
Because of all the spots on it.
Angular lesions.
Cool. Very good.
That's what it looks like to me.
Yellow, little bit yellow.
Yeah.
Does anybody find one that's got a virus?
Maybe that one.
Yeah, this, but it's not too wide.
No.
It's the other one transmitted by trips.
Toaspo?
It could be Toaspo, yep, absolutely. Do you see any that have fungus in them?
I bet this one does.
There was one in there that had a fungus, which is very interesting because when I put it in that bag, it did not have any fungus.
Oh, look, that one's growing
There you
fuzzy
go.
stuff.
There you go.
Fuzzy stuff.
So, because it was in that bag, it was high humidity, that fungus that wasn't there when I put it in there has developed over the course of a couple days.
On the flower, too. I bet it's vaginas.
It probably is. So what I have for you is a little handout to help you in the future, and I think you can have this. This is based on a poster, again, Dr. Lalade produced. It has a lot of diseases that are more common in the field than in the breeding bench, but it will help to identify what some of the things are. By using this handout, can you identify specifically what those diseases are, or attempt to it? And it may not be possible because of a really tiny handout, but it does give you some ideas of what the different things are.
I think this is bacterial spot.
Okay.
That would be my guess. That one's bad. Is that one? I kept thinking that one was
This
Toaspo.
could be this one.
Southern blind? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Southern blind.
I think this one was the bacterial wilt, which I'm not even sure because we had gotten it out of the field from that
Gotcha.
area.
Gotcha.
This
It
one,
will. It clearly
yeah,
did.
this one actually I think was TMV, not TMV, TYLCV, because you look how tiny and crinkled these leaves are.
Yeah.
It does have bacteria as bacterial problem as
So
well.
it's both.
Yes.
I do see it.
Yes.
So we're going to look out for co-infection. I didn't even think about that.
And if you were a field scout, you'd need to know all these different things. But for the purposes of our breeding bench, all we really want to know is that we have a disease plant and we need to get rid of it or get something in there to spray in order to take care of it. What about the other three? Were they okay?
Oh.
Was there any issues with them?
Yeah.
Some of them had some discolored leaves. Was that anything to be concerned about?
I see some with a little bit of necrosis along the edge, but I don't think it's anything.
Maybe nutritional or
Very good, excellent.
It's not a disease, it's a disorder.
Right,
Yeah.
so I included some of other non-disease plants just so that you can, it's very obvious the difference in them, but there are some like little minor things that you might be concerned about, but we don't really have to worry about those as far as diseases are concerned. If it was a deficiency in nutrients, then we want to bring that to the attention of somebody so that they can maybe check the fertilizing system that's going in and make sure it's not having a breakdown, or occasionally it does. So anyway, that was great. So what we did today was we looked at the symptoms of the different diseases and how we could identify what they are, or at least identify that they're disease plants, and we identified the 3 modes of transmission of diseases. Can we repeat what things are?
mechanical,
Well,
Vector.
vector,
And water.
Airborne spores.
airborne,
Yeah, and then like touching.
touch. Okay, very good. And you said physical and that's all the contact thing. So excellent job. And next time we are going to jump right into the greenhouse and we're going to learn how to pollinate those flowers.
Yay.
So see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.